Hello. So this is going to be a recording, a presentation on assumptions. The members of our team are Sureily Font, Paola Escobar, Terrachan Huckleby, Felix, Guzman, Rivera, and Sabrina Santiago. Sureily Font did the symbolism. Paola Escobar, Terrachan Huckleby proudly did the explaining of assumptions. Felix Guzman Rivera did the examples in and out of the classroom of assumptions, and Sabrina Santiago did assumptions, positive and negative, in healthcare.
Assumptions are something that we believe or that we accept to be true without any actual proof or actual knowledge about the subject. Assumptions are a part of our everyday lives. We do not even realize how often we make assumptions because of how normal they are to us. The assumptions that we make are based off of how we reason with what is going on around us. Often, our form of thinking and reasoning is built upon our assumptions.
Hello, my name is Tara, and I'll be describing what an assumption is. An assumption can be described as a thing that is accepted as true or certain to happen without actual proof. Synonyms include premise, belief, or expectation. These assumptions can be both positive and negative in nature. In the next slide, I'm going to kind of describe the differences between a positive and a negative assumption and how to tell what those differences are. So, what makes an assumption positive or negative? I like to think of this a little bit like a spectrum or like a flow sheet, but I just jotted down a couple sentences. Hopefully, it makes sense. Positive assumptions tend to be more accurate and they tend to help the situation. Negative assumptions tend to be less accurate in nature and then they harm the situation in some way or another. Assumptions are normally connected to previous experiences, hence back to our discussion about biases. It's imperative that we become aware of them in order to effectively care for others. And it's outside of like even a healthcare perspective, just as a whole, as human beings who want to do well and spread good to the world, we have to be aware of our assumptions.
The way I see assumptions is that only lazy people make assumptions. In reality, we all make assumptions, but more so, lazy people make assumptions. Because if you really want to find out what you are assuming, if this is true, you would actually just ask the person. So that says more that as a healthcare worker, you have studied hard to be able to get to where you're at. So you shouldn't be making assumptions, especially with a patient, because you never know what is going to happen. That it could turn around on you, and it could be a very embarrassing moment. And examples of real life assumptions, I've had a personal example of, let's say at the gym, a person may look small, and I'm assuming that the person cannot lift a lot of weight, but in reality the person ended up lifting a lot of weight. So I kind of stayed in awe. And another example I have is one of my uncles. He's an oncologist, and when he was younger, he went to go to the Mercedes dealership, and he wanted to buy a car, and he just went in some shorts and flip flops, and they didn't accept him, and they didn't think he actually had the money to buy a car, and they thought that he was just going in to just view the cars. And to prove a point, he went to another dealership, he bought a car cash, and he ended up going back and he showed them the keys. And yeah, it's just showing that you're not supposed to assume things in life. You need to figure them out. We as humans tend to make many assumptions, and especially in the healthcare field, it is not good to assume things, because you don't know if you're giving a specific medication to somebody and you're going to assume that you're going to give a specific amount, and you don't know if that could cause something really bad to happen on the person. There's a video that we covered when we went over assumptions that I found really helpful, that it shows normal people, whether it was in the hospital or it was in actual normal world, and you can see their thoughts and what they were going through in their life. And I feel like I really connected with this video because I personally tend to assume sometimes, and it helped me to be able to notice that we as healthcare workers and just normal people should not make assumptions. You should come to the proper consensus and think, okay, well, this person might be going through something, so I, as a healthcare worker, am gonna still do and give the best care possible. These people that you see at the right, they look like normal healthcare people and they're all smiling, but in reality, we don't know if it's just a fake smile or what, because all these different people have different lives and they have different problems that they're going through. So, regardless of what is happening, you should always treat a person right because you never know what exactly they are going through.
Healthcare professionals will make assumptions every day that they work. Doctors, nurses, paramedics are all healthcare professionals that need to use assumptions. Doctors, when they meet their patients and going into the room and listening to the symptoms, will make an assumption about what exactly are they feeling or what is wrong with them according to their symptoms. However, these assumptions do need to be educated. They cannot be biased. Once the doctor figures out the assumption and figures out the symptoms that the patient is having, then the doctor is able to go back, do some more research, run some labs, run anything that they need to do in order to justify their assumption, and then give the patient a diagnosis and then a prognosis. A positive assumption example in healthcare could be that a paramedic walks into a house for, let's say, a 911 call and sees a man laying on the floor unconscious with a needle next to him and injection marks on his arm. The medic will have all the right to assume that the patient has overdosed and then treat him accordingly after doing an assessment. A negative assumption example in healthcare could be that a doctor refuses to give patient any more painkillers because of their history of pharmaceutical drugs. The patient may be in serious pain or maybe not in serious pain, and that right there is when the assumptions need to be educated and not biased. Just because a patient may be a druggie or may be really addicted to painkillers does not mean that they don't deserve the right to have any painkillers. The doctors will no longer be able to make an educated assumption about that patient. They're just going to have to be non-biased and give them the medication anyways. That's not their job. Their job is to save the patient's life. So here we see two different types of assumptions that can be positive or negative in healthcare. And all of us healthcare professionals, when we eventually finish our career and get there, we'll need to make sure that we have all positive assumptions when dealing with our patients.
The definition of assumption is a thing that is accepted as true or as certain without proof. Synonyms of assumption are arrogance, self-confidence, presumption, and conviction. As I was thinking about a symbol that can represent assumptions, I thought of a balance. A balance is an instrument used for comparing weight of one or more items. I think in life, and especially in a career in healthcare, it will be important for us to build trust and good relationships with coworkers and patients. If we are quick to make assumptions about them, this can disrupt these relationships. So in my balance, I want to make sure I have multiple things that will help me be successful in building these relationships. If I'm going to make assumptions, which is human nature to do so, we need to make sure that we have a comprehensive backstory. So we need to gather as many facts as we can. We also need to make sure that we understand the value of each person we come across. So we are not quick to make assumptions, but instead we learn to treat them with compassion and respect.